So I thought I would elaborate a little bit more on my background and childhood, upbringing, and such, because all of that kind of got me to where I was when I did experience this awakening or contact from these angels. And I lived a pretty normal life, middle class family. Um, there were difficult times because we lived in a pretty ritzy area. Um, Most of my friends had money or came from money, and we weren't poor, but we weren't exactly up to par to where a lot of them were in this community. And I never had a really close or nurturing relationship much with my mother. Um, she did suffer from a lot of anxiety and depression. She was a hermit, more or less, most of my life. Um, Agoraphobic, I guess is what you would call it. Big couch potato, just laid on the couch all day watching TV shows. And I, from a young age, I was obsessed with my Barbies because I had a really wild and vivid imagination. And I was fine keeping myself busy for hours on end in my bedroom, which is what she preferred and made it known that way. Um, had a close relationship with my father, although he was distant. He was involved in computers when they first became big, and uh, spent a lot of time rebuilding them and programming. I think, him and my mom had a pretty tumultuous, or they had a pretty rocky marriage. And I think he spent a lot of time on his computer just to avoid her, to be honest. In essence, us kids ended up getting avoided as well a lot of the time. I was always a big observer of everyone. I would just people watch all the time and take it all in and psychoanalyze in my own mind and make conclusions. I would trust my instincts a lot. Um, I would always consider all possibilities when making all possible outcomes when making a decision. I would follow my heart, but I've also been really sensitive to the thoughts and emotions of others, and by being so sensitive, I have suffered a lot of disappointment and heartbreak in my life, um, because I mean, I don't consider myself naive. I'm just naturally trusting, or I just naturally wear my heart on my sleeve, or I'm just upfront and real with everyone in hopes that they'll be the same way with me. But unfortunately, that's not how it works here. And I'm hoping that will be changing soon. But a lot of I've just always had these observations and epiphanies as though I was a scientist. And just I couldn't believe that there's like people starving in the world, and why, like, there's so much nonsense. And things have always seemed like ass backwards and upside down to me. Like, there's no reason why we can't have free energy, clean water, why there's not enough homes for people to have a roof over the head. Or And then I hear all this music, especially, from the hippies or the 60s era, and that's all it preaches about. And I'm like, ugh, here I am, it's the 80s and 90s, and nothing's changed. We're still going to war, people are still starving, there's earthquakes and all these, and nobody cares. Like, yeah, there's donations and there's this and that, but then you hear that, a lot of that doesn't even really get to the people that need it, or you don't know which charities you can trust, which ones are scams. It's just, even from my own personal observations, at the time that I went through my awakening, I was 30 years old. And, I was thinking about my kids and their future and what kind of state of affairs is their future going to be in if things continue this way. It just seems to get progressively worse and worse. And our leaders are being outed for their perversions and manipulations and corrupt ways, and it's just been going on for so long. And it's always disturbed me. I never understood why. Why can't we come together and fix this? I've always been like, I've always wanted to fix everything and everybody, or I wanted them to see themselves the way that I saw them, and that doesn't work either. So, anyways, from childhood, I've also always had visions. I've always had, it seems as though my third eye has always been active, and or my imagination, if you will. It's kind of one and the same. I do know that I was a big daydreamer. I would always daze off, and that's what, it's also what I refer to as meditation, and the angels confirm that it is. Like, it's always been really easy for me to get into that state naturally. If you talk about the pyramids, I can visualize them in my mind as though I'm there. If you're recreating a story, I will even dress the people in my visions. And I never considered the possibility of whether that was psychic or not. Like, I don't know what they were wearing. I never really inquired to compare my vision with reality. I just know that I've always had that ability. And I've also had the ability to easily recall where I've last seen something. So I do have some form of photographic memory. I just think it's because I am so observational that I just make a note to remember everything in its place in a way. Like, but I'm not positive I can pass like a test, like on one of those genius shows where you have to look at the scenery and then recall where everything is. It's not like that, but pretty close. And it's really accurate. But if the kids can't find a shoe, or somebody misplaced something, I'm the one to ask, because 9 times out of 10 I know where I last saw it, and it's usually there. So that's been another ability, I guess. I have been able to have telekinesis with some people, my daughter included, and I don't know if it's just because we live together and spend so much time together, but I swear our thoughts are so in sync. Like, I don't know if I'm reading her mind or she's reading mine, but I'll think something and then she'll say it, or vice versa, other way around. But that's happened really frequently. Same with my best friend. Like, back in the day, I could read him like a book. Like, and I can do that with a lot of people. Once I'm around them long enough. And I could really use it to my advantage if I wanted to. I could really manipulate the shit out of some people, but I'm not going to abuse my powers or abilities, because I do live by, and always have lived by, the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated. I always believed in karma. I always believed in the universe, or that, something was out there that was higher than myself. I always wished upon stars, and, blew the dandelion seeds, and appreciated the weed that they were. And I could, it irked me when people would use weed killer to kill my pretty dandelions, or I would always try to save the baby animals. I tried to save a bunny. I tried to save a baby blue jay that was injured. So I have always had a naturally, a nurturing spirit, instead of following the footsteps of my parents. I made a conscious effort to be the mother to my kids that I wish my mom had been to me, or seek the relationship, the love in a partner that I saw was lacking in their marriage. Like, I seriously made a conscious effort to do things intentionally opposite and conquer my fears. I didn't want to turn out to be miserable and stuck in my house all the time and stuck in the cycle of depression, anxiety, like my mom had for so long. And I really tried to be her best friend, and I did feel like I was often a therapist to each of them on different occasions. It's like when me and my dad would get together, we would talk shit about my mom, and when my mom got together, we'd talk shit about my dad, and it just really wasn't healthy. And I just always felt stuck in the middle, and that I would never want that for my kids. And so it's always conscious on my part. I had started off my career as a caregiver. I went to school to become certified as a CNA. And I had started off with this nursing home. They actually put me through the schooling program under the contingents that I would work for their company for so long. And it was a pretty good deal, to be honest with you. So I started off working in the nursing homes, and although I have the heart and the stomach for it, it was really depressing and taxing after a few years. And I actually spent quite a long time, several years in the nursing home industry before deciding to do private in-home care, because I just couldn't believe how many patients were not cared about or cared for properly, how needy some of them were. They knew I wasn't there for the paycheck. I was there because I wanted to make a difference, and I wanted their last days to be comfortable and know that they had somebody, that would lend an ear or take good care of them. And unfortunately, I was one of the few in the nursing home industry that wasn't just there for a paycheck, and the residents knew that as well. And it's like people are begging me to help them get ready for bed, and they're not even on my wing that night. And it just really got to me, because like I said, I'm really sensitive, and I did build a lot of relationships, and I know I have a lot of angels looking after me that have crossed over and know that I really loved them and cared for them. But I felt like I just couldn't be everywhere at once. So it was a constant dilemma. And once I got into private care, I knew that I could take solace in the fact that that patient was going to get good care. Then I moved into management, and that's what I've been doing for the past few years because it pays the bills better, and it's fun to be a boss sometimes. And I've also had a knack for, this is a really weird ability. So several years ago, I noticed that, it seemed like when I would drive under a street light, it would go out. And I looked it up, and there is a name for it, and it did say something, and this is way before. Oh, I think it's called sliders, maybe. That was a long time ago. I looked that up. I know I get shocked easily when others don't. Like, there was a ceiling fan in one of my residents' home, and her grandson happened to be there, and every time I go to turn it off or on, I would get shocked through the piece hanging off of the cord that you pull. And I asked him to try it a few times, and he didn't get shocked at all. And that's not the first time that's happened. Or a lot of times when I go to flip a light switch on, the light bulb will blow out. Happens quite often. I somehow methodically can calculate how much gas I have in my tank. I hardly ever keep that bitch on full. I am always pushing my luck when it comes to the gas, and rarely have I ran out. It'll be down to the drop, dude, before I get any gas in there. But Like I always believe that the universe is on my side. The universe is not going to let me down, and I name my cars and we bond, and I'm like, come on, Betty, you can do it. Um, so, and I can also methodically calculate how long it's going to take me to get to my destination, just based on rough guesstimation. And if I've been that way before, it's locale. Like I have this automatic navigation system in me somehow that's always been pretty freaking accurate. And I'm not a big math person. Like I flunked algebra twice. And I don't consciously calculate anything. I still have to use a calculator just to like count my pop cans or simple tasks like that. So, because I really don't like to think more than I already do or have to. I really have to enjoy the subject matter to spend any quality time thinking about it. But I've just somehow always pulled it off with time management as well, and it's really come in handy as a manager. Let me think. I was always into like ESP books and mystery books as a child. Witchcraft I explored a little bit, just reading material, but not really like into it. I was into like the Teen Witch movie and things like that, but I always believed in magic and black magic and white magic, good versus evil, and I remember always being She-Ra when we played He-Man with my neighbors. I have a younger sister who has a lot of the same ailments as my mom, and she seems to have taken to the path to follow more in her footsteps, and she's been in not so happy relationships, and it's affected her children as well. And she's made some decisions that I might not necessarily agree with, but in my mom's eyes she gets credit because she is more like her. They definitely have a closer relationship. I am considered more of a black sheep for some reason. And my older sister, she has a learning disability. In a lot of ways, I'm an older sister to her, because she still has a teenage type mentality, and I'm always giving her advice and tips and trying to help guide her through this crazy life. She has severe anxiety, which she pretty much refuses to treat. So between the dynamics of my family and my failed relationships with my kids' fathers, and just a string of bad luck after meeting my twin flame and knowing him for a few years, I just realized that, like men today, I felt so emotionally unfulfilled. And I was at one of my lowest points. I was in a relationship and we were having problems, and I was like at my wit's end. And like I said, I really enjoy singing, and I karaoke quite a bit. And I used to karaoke on this website and participate in a bunch of contests and things. And man, I was on a kick for a while. I was singing nearly every day, singing something. And I just was so fed up with my relationship. My oldest daughter was rebelling. I was so tired of having to be so strong yet feeling so alone all the time. And where was my rock? When can I be vulnerable? Who's got my back? Like, where's my happy ending? What is going on? Why am I singing these love songs they're never real? Like, marriage is a mockery. Nobody's happy. Like, they're all pretending, or, the divorce rate is so high. What is the point? And where's my good karma? What is the point of all this? And that's like, it was my breaking point. And like, I got depressed. Like, I didn't want to sing Like, nothing was happy to me anymore. Nothing, like, it was the bottom of my barrel, I guess. Like, I was so like, God, if I didn't have kids right now, I would not choose to be here. Because it's all been struggles and hardships, and I keep trying, I keep trying to not give up on myself, or not deny my true nature. For one, it seemed like a blessing or a curse, because for one, I just couldn't help it. Like, I wish I could just become that cold-hearted bitch, quit letting people in, build up a wall, blah, 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 blah. But I know that's not the person I am. That's not the person I want to be. But being sensitive and being so loving and caring about people just wasn't getting me anywhere. Like, good guys finish last, and I was one of the good guys, and I couldn't understand what this was all about. Why are we here? Why was I born into this? Why is this happening? Why is there so much suffering in this world? And that was like the day the music died for me. Literally, like, for me to go that long without singing at that time was like, there was definitely something wrong with me. And that's when I had my breakthrough. It was like right after that, because it was that boyfriend. I was still with that boyfriend when I had my awakening. He was the witness to it, and I was telling him everything as it was happening, and so this was all around the same time. And it was like then when they made contact with me and told me all of this stuff. And it's just been a crazy roller coaster ride ever since, of synchronicities and everything coming to fruition that they had told me. And I just can't believe that. I couldn't believe that I could be this special, that my soul is that much bigger than me, that this is a reality. And like, I went from being so devastated and hopeless, and like, at the point I just wanted to, I was dying on an emotional level. And now I'm on the complete other spectrum. Now I'm on the other spectrum. Like, magic is real. Miracles can happen. It's coming. This did happen for a reason. And I am this special chosen soul. It's just so much to take in. And it's just, the gravity of it all is insane. And still processing, still learning. Not only have I always been obsessed with music and singing in general, but just I'm just diverse in art altogether. Like, I'm pretty good at painting and drawing. I love to write. I'm a fan of art. I like to look at various kinds of art. MC Escher, like all kinds of artists I'm a fan of. I appreciate self-expression in anybody. Like, I love the tattoos. I love the piercings. I love the colored hair. I love, like, whatever makes you happy, man. Like, I'm for that. And let's see, photography, fashion, modeling. Like, I've always referred to myself as multifaceted, because I am to some degree, and I've always felt blessed, or like had gratitude for all of my abilities and passions in life, because I know there's so many people out there struggling. There's kids in Africa that are perfectly happy kicking a can around. There's people missing limbs that are still waking up in the morning, glad to have another day, participating in sports, working. Those are the people that inspire me. Those are the people that keep me going. And it just fills my heart. And lyrics. I've always been one to pay really close attention to lyrics in songs. Some people just go along with the beat and not even really paying attention to what the song is about. And the angels did express to me that you don't have to listen to shit backwards. Most music out there is about love or alien intervention. or going home. It's about this heaven. It's about evolution. Like, it all depends on what perspective you're really like looking through. But it seems so obvious to me now in hindsight. Like, even I was oblivious to it before the angels told me that. Like, but you don't need Sam. Like, any song, like, trust me, like, start listening to songs from this perspective, and you'll see it for yourself. But it's glorious. It's literally been a magic carpet ride for me ever since 2010, and just to see all these people coming together it's just blowing me away, and I'm loving it, every minute of it. And I'm on this natural high from these energies, and just seeing this all coming together, and knowing that I'm a part of it all is awesome. So, and I've always like compartmentalize things in my own mind. Anything that I have witnessed, observed, watched, movies, books I've read, teachers, things I've learned in class, anything that I have perceived or experienced throughout my lifetime is filed away in my brain in different sections. And it really came in handy during, like, I refer to it as my Rolodex. And when I had my awakening in 2010, or my download, the easiest way to convey that to my boyfriend at the time was like, they are bringing up images and memories that are not on my Rolodex. So that's how I best explained it at the time. But through their telepathic communication with me, my files came in handy, because they would bring up certain things from my files. Like, they would present it in front of my third eye, like the visuals that I had always gotten through childhood, when I would do it myself. Well, they were controlling that and bringing up files in front of my third eye for me to reflect on or draw a parallel. Like, they would use images from my brain to convey what they were trying to tell me. And they did make a lot of references to Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and like The Who's Tommy. Like, that was always a significant movie for me in my childhood. And it didn't really mean much to me until this experience with the angels, because they drew a whole lot of parallels to that movie. But a lot of it's all personal. Like, nobody... That's why it's been so hard to come out about my experience, because unless you've lived my life and seen everything and experienced everything that I have, you won't get it. Like, this awakening, this Kundalini experience, this enlightenment is completely and entirely a personal experience. But the point of it and significance of it all is realizing that you can evolve, and you can access your higher self and become one with everything and everybody. It's the realization. I mean, I've always had a habit of anybody that anytime I do encounter someone, I'm like, oh, they remind me of my friend so-and-so, or oh, he kind of looks like my ex, so like, or I see a part of myself in them, or like, I've always had in the back of my mind, like, what would Jesus do? Or what if God was one of us? Or, what if this bum begging for change on the street is really Jesus incarnate? Like, I can't treat anybody differently than, I want to make sure I go to the good place. So I never tried to treat anybody like they were more special than the next. And just equality and be yourself. But it became apparent to me that was such a struggle for people in this place. Like, everybody was putting on masks and faces. Everybody's so afraid of judgment, yet they're judging everybody else. And that's where, like, the mirror effect or the reflection of society comes into play, I think, because, like, I'm the same person no matter who I'm with, where I'm at, what time of day. Like, I've always felt balanced in that way. Like, I feel like I have maybe been in relationships with some bipolar people, and I always gauge myself by my observations of others, like to keep myself in check. Like, am I bipolar? No, because I'm usually takes a lot to really get me pissed off, but you don't want to see me pissed off, because once I'm there, there's no going back. But it really does take a lot to get me to that point to begin with, and I know I've endured more than a lot of people would like put up with, in some cases. So, and I also am guilty of giving people more chances than they deserve, but at the risk of my own well-being, I guess. So I've always been a self-sacrificing person, or sabotaging on some level, depending on how you look at it. But it's because I care. I really do want the best for everyone and see the best in everyone, and to a fault at times. And I admit that. So, and I think that's why I've experienced a lot of unhappiness or emotional unsatisfaction in my relationships, because I keep ending up with these guys that seem to have this caveman mentality where it's just eat, sleep, sex, work, eat, sleep, sex, work. Or I'm not the type of person that can just sit on a couch for hours on end watching the tube. Like, I am an intellectual. I am very feeling. I like to discuss, these kinds of topics. I do like to do things. I like to get out there. I like to live life versus watching a fake cast on a routinely basis, living a fake life on TV. Like, and that's why I've always felt like an outsider looking in, because I see how brainwashed most people are. From the time I was a child, I'm like, why isn't it working on me? Why am I not brainwashed like everybody else? Why do I think differently? At one point I saw that they were doing like a study on Albert Einstein's brain or something like that, and I was like, I wish somebody would do a study on my brain, because I don't think it works like most people's. Or I would ask people around me, like, that they'd be all quiet. My partner would be sitting there being quiet, and I'm like, what are you thinking about? And they'd be like, nothing. And for me personally, I just can't understand that concept. Like, I am always thinking, whether I'm reflecting on the past, or thinking about something that needs to be done tomorrow, or being in the moment, and just, or thinking about nature, or I'm just always thinking, and I can't imagine, unless I am in meditation, I can't imagine just sitting there and being thoughtless or visionless. And at one point, in my adulthood, after I made all these realizations that not only do I think that maybe my brain doesn't work like most people's, but I don't think my heart does either. Because of how sensitive and how many simple disappointments I experienced, or letdowns. Like, I can't tell you how tragic it was for me when I found out that Santa Claus wasn't real. Not just the fact that Santa, my hero, was not real, but that my parents would lie to me like that. I just didn't understand that concept. When I first found out as a kid that this meat that we're eating is pig and cow, like, that devastated me on the inside. Like, a part of me knew better then, but I didn't even realize that until hindsight, when they told me that I was a special soul, like, and they started connecting all these dots for me, and it totally made sense on some levels. Like, I am this person you're saying. I am a lot like this person. I do love, and I am kind of wise, and I did, like, but not from an egotistical perspective at all. It's just loving myself and knowing who I am on the inside, and how I've always looked at things, and all the insight I've always had. Like, I always felt like mature beyond my years, or that saying, you can be in a crowded room and still feel alone. Like, that's me. 90% of the time, that's me. Um, but at some point I felt like I understood. I came to the realization that this Jesus guy I read about in the Bible and hear about on television and movies, he loves like I do. He sees the world like I do. He thinks like I do. Like, I had convinced myself that only the love of a God or Jesus was good enough for me, because that's honestly how I felt and feel after all of my experiences in dating and relationships and observing other people's as well. And I was content with that knowing. Like, in an odd way, like, because I'm no religious freak or anything. But with my entire heart and soul and being, I truly felt that way. Like, and I know there's been like other females that have, like, Jenny McCarthy has talked about the fact that she's fantasized over the, the image of Jesus or what he looks like, but it wasn't even about that for me. Like, I don't care. I just wanted to find his soul incarnate because I need to be with that soul. Like, and little did I know at the time that the angels would reveal to me that Jesus is in fact my twin flame and I am this female aspect of him. And so that all ended up making sense. And I just feel like I've been on a mission ever since my awakening, and this has all been revealed to me. And I've been creating albums and spreading the message and preaching on my Facebook page. I created a group. I'm a member of many groups surrounding these topics, and I've just put the generic messages out there without any implications of my soul or anything too personal. In hopes, I'm hoping everybody can achieve Kundalini, and I've been trying to teach even the simplest of minds via my Facebook on how to have that happen or have the experience of their own. Because I definitely don't want to be alone in this, and I want everyone to be able to experience like the miracles and synchronicities that I have been like so intensely over these past few years. And in the meantime, the angels said they want us to try and stay centered, focused on love, our love for our twin flame, love for ourselves. Follow your hearts. Try to steer away from any negativity. They said they want to keep mama happy. So they told me, make me happy, enjoy my art, be out in nature, take a load off whenever I can. That is perfectly okay to rest or take naps or whatever is going to keep me balanced and heart-centered. So that's what I recommend for anybody. And I'm just hoping for more and more of these energy waves and more self-discovery. And I'm so happy to be on this journey with you guys.